Most people believe value is subjective. They think money flows randomly, that wealth favors the lucky. They treat value like it's an opinion, something that changes based on who's looking, what mood they're in. But here's what they don't understand. Value isn't subjective, it's not random, it's not arbitrary. Value follows laws as predictable as gravity, as certain as mathematics, as unavoidable as death. And the moment you understand these laws, the moment you see through the fog that keeps most people blind, money stops being mysterious, wealth stops being luck. Success stops being a lottery ticket you're waiting to win. This video will do something most content never attempts. It won't give you tactics. It won't sell you a course. It won't promise you quick wins or easy money. What it will do is far more dangerous. It will reconstruct how you see value itself. By the time we're done, you'll understand how value is created in any situation, any market, any relationship. You'll learn why most people spend their entire lives generating value for others, while receiving almost. And you'll discover exactly what separates those who get rich from those who stay poor. This isn't about working harder. This isn't about motivation. This is about understanding the architecture of value creation itself and learning to operate inside it with, let's start with the foundation, the first truth that most people never accept. Wealth is not luck. It's not a windfall. It's not something that happens to you. Wealth is constructed deliberately over time, through specific decisions that compound in ways most people. Think about this for a moment. When you see someone driving a luxury car, living in an expensive home, traveling the world, for most people it's one of two things. Either they got lucky or they did something shady. They won the lottery. They inherited money, they scammed someone, they were born into privilege. This is the narrative that keeps people poor. Because if wealth is luck, then you're powerless. If wealth is random chance, then all you can do is hope. And hope is not a strategy. Hope is what people do when they've given up control. The average person believes money comes from rare events. A promotion, a big sale, a viral post, an inheritance, a lucky break. They structure their entire financial life around hoping for these moments, waiting for them, praying for them. And when these moments don't come, they blame the system, the economy, their boss, their circumstances. But here's the truth they're missing. Wealth doesn't come from events, it comes from systems. It comes from building structures that generate value repeatedly, predictably, independently of your mood. A job is an event. A business is a system. A salary is an event. Equity is a system. A commission is an event. Recurring revenue is a system. Do you see the difference? Events require you to be present, to perform, to keep showing up. Systems work whether you're there or not. The poor wait for events, the rich build systems. But even deeper than that, most people confuse earning money with building wealth. These are not the same thing. Earning money is what happens when you trade your time, your labor, your attention for currency. Building wealth is what happens when you take that currency and transform it into assets that appreciate. A doctor can earn $500,000 a year and still be broke. A plumber can earn $60,000 and be wealthy. The difference isn't income, it's allocation. It's what you do with what you earn. Earning is linear. Wealth is exponential. Earning stops when you stop working. Wealth compounds while you sleep. Let me paint you a picture. Two people graduate from the same university with the same degree. Person A gets a job at a prestigious consulting firm making $150,000 a year. Person B starts a small business making $40,000 in the first year. Fast forward 10 years. Person A is now making $300,000 a year. They live in a beautiful apartment, drive a luxury car, take expensive vacations. They look successful. They feel successful. But their net worth is $200,000. Why? Because every time their income went up, their lifestyle went up with it. They're on a hedonic treadmill running faster and faster but never actually getting ahead. Person B, on the other hand, still lives modestly. They reinvested every dollar back into their business for the first 5 years. They drove the same used car. They lived in a small apartment. They said no to things their friends said yes to. But now their business generates $500,000 in profit annually. Their net worth is $3 million. Same starting point, completely different outcome. One optimized for appearing wealthy, the other optimized for being wealthy. The market doesn't care how you look. It rewards what you own. Most people never make this transition. They spend their entire lives earning, spending, earning, spending. They upgrade their lifestyle every time their income increases. They buy the bigger house, the nicer car, the expensive vacations. They feel rich. But they're not. They're just earning more. And the moment they stop earning, everything collapses. This is why working hard guarantees nothing. You've been told your whole life that hard work pays off, that effort equals results, that if you just put in the hours, the sacrifice, the grind, success will follow. But look around. Look at the hardest working people you know. The single mothers working 2 jobs, the construction workers in the heat, the nurses doing double shifts. Are they rich? No. They're exhausted. They're underpaid. They're trapped. Not because they're lazy, not because they're not trying, but because hard work by itself creates no value. What creates value is leverage. What creates value is positioning. What creates value is solving problems that people will pay to have solved. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A software engineer who writes code for 3 hours a day can make $500,000 a year. A farm worker who works 12 hours a day in brutal conditions makes $30,000. The farm worker works 4 times as long, in far worse conditions with far more physical strain. But the software engineer makes 17 times more money. Is the software engineer working harder? Absolutely not. But they're working on something the market values exponentially more. They have skills that are rare. They solve problems that companies will pay premium prices to solve. They have leverage through code. The farm worker has none of these things. They have effort, but effort without leverage is just suffering. You can work yourself to death and still be poor if you're working on the wrong things in the wrong way. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards results. And results come from strategic thinking, not sweat. This isn't fair. This isn't how the world should work. But it is how the world does work. And you can either rage against reality, or you can learn to operate within it successfully. This brings us to the first mental shift that separates the wealthy from everyone else. Time horizon. How far ahead are you thinking? The poor think in weeks. When is my next paycheck? How do I make it to Friday? Can I afford this thing I want right now? Their entire decision-making framework is compressed into the immediate future, and because of that, they make decisions that feel good now but destroy them later. They finance furniture. They lease cars. They rack up credit card debt for things they don't need. They take the immediate pleasure over the future gain every single time, not because they're stupid, but because they're operating with a short-term lens. They can't see what's coming. They can't imagine the compound effects of their choices. Think about the psychology of this for a moment. When your entire focus is on surviving the week, when you're constantly stressed about making rent, it's stuck in survival mode. Survival mode optimizes for now. It doesn't care about 10 years from now because 10 years from now doesn't exist when you're worried about. This is the trap. Poverty creates a short-term mindset. A short-term mindset creates poor decisions. Poor decisions create more poverty. It's a cycle that's incredibly hard to break because the very condition of being poor makes it nearly, but it can be broken. Not easily, not quickly, but it can be done. And it starts with forcibly extending your time horizon, even when everything in your situation is telling you. The middle class thinks in months and years. They plan for the next promotion, they save for a vacation. They budget for the year. They're more responsible than the poor, but they're still trapped in a relatively short cycle. They make better choices, but they're still not thinking far enough ahead to build real wealth. They'll save for retirement, but they won't build businesses. They'll invest in a 401k, but they won't take the risk of starting something that could change they're playing it safe, which means they're guaranteed to end up middle class. There's nothing wrong with middle class. It's comfortable, it's stable, but it's not wealth. And if you want wealth, you can't think like the middle class. You have to think like the rich. The rich think in decades. They ask themselves, where will this decision put me in 10 years? What will this investment be worth in 20? How can I structure my life today so that my future self has options, leverage, freedom, power? They delay gratification not because they're disciplined. Let me give you a concrete example. 2 people, same age, same income. Person A buys a new car every 5 years. Person B buys a used car, drives it for 15 years, and invests the difference. After 30 years, Person A has spent $300,000 on cars and owns nothing. Person B has spent $80,000 on cars and has over $700,000 in investments. Same income, completely different outcome. Why? Time horizon. Person A was optimizing for how they felt in the short term. Person B was optimizing for where they'd be in the long term. This pattern repeats across every area of life. The short-term thinker eats out because they don't feel like cooking. The long-term thinker meal preps because they know it saves $12,000 a year. The short-term thinker scrolls social media for dopamine hits. The long-term thinker studies, reads, builds skills that compound. The short-term thinker buys things that depreciate. The long-term thinker buys things that appreciate. Over time, these tiny differences create an unbridgeable gap. Not because one person worked harder, but because one person thought further. And this connects directly to one of the most underrated traits of wealthy people. The ability to delay rewards. This is not about willpower. This is not about being tough or disciplined for discipline's sake. This is about seeing reality clearly enough to understand that immediate pleasure is almost always the enemy. Every time you choose the quick hit of dopamine, you're stealing from your future self. Every time you buy something you don't need, you're draining resources that could have been building wealth. Every time you binge Netflix instead of learning a high-value skill, you're compounding in the wrong direction. Let me give you a framework for understanding this. Every decision you make is either an investment or an expense. An investment pays you back later. An expense is gone forever. The poor treat almost everything as an expense. They spend money on things that give them temporary pleasure but build nothing. New clothes, eating out, entertainment, gadgets, subscriptions, none of these things appreciate. None of these things generate future value. They're pure consumption. The rich, on the other hand, treat almost everything as an investment. When they spend money on education, they're buying skills that will earn returns for decades. When they spend money on health, they're buying energy and longevity that will allow them to work longer. And when they spend money on relationships and networking, they're buying access to opportunities that would, same action, spending money, but completely different intention and completely different outcome. The poor are addicted to instant gratification. They need the new phone the day it comes out. They need the vacation they can't afford. They need to feel good right now, even if it destroys them later. And they tell themselves stories to justify it. I work hard, I deserve this. Life is short, you only live once. I'll start saving next month, but next month never comes. Because the pattern is the problem, not the individual choice. One bad decision won't ruin you. A pattern of bad decisions will. And the scary part is that bad patterns feel normal. They feel like life. They feel like everyone else. And that's exactly why they're so dangerous. When everyone around you is making the same mistakes, those mistakes start to look like the right thing to do. Here's what most people don't realize. Every dollar you spend emotionally is a dollar that could have been working for you. Not sitting in a bank account earning nothing but working, growing, multiplying. If you invest $1,000 at age 25 and let it grow at an average return, that's the power of time. That's what you're giving up when you spend on things that don't matter. And it's not just money, it's attention, it's energy, it's focus. The person who spends 3 hours a day watching TV is compounding ignorance. The person who spends 3 hours a day learning is compounding skill. Both are using the same amount of time, but one is building wealth and the other is building nothing. The gap between them isn't talent, it's time allocation. It's the ability to delay the easy reward for the valuable outcome.
Now let's talk about the most uncomfortable truth in this entire video.
The one that most people will reject, resist, and refuse to accept. You are responsible for your results. Not partially responsible. Not mostly responsible. Completely responsible. I know what you're thinking. But the economy is rigged. But my boss is terrible. But I didn't have the same opportunities as other people. But the system is broken. And you might be right. Maybe the system is broken. Maybe your boss is terrible. Maybe you didn't have the same advantages. But here's the only question that matters. Does blaming them fix your situation? Does complaining about unfairness make you richer? Does pointing at external factors give you more control? No, it does the opposite. It makes you powerless. When you blame external forces for your outcomes, you give away your power. You become a victim, and victims don't build wealth. Victims don't create value. Victims wait for someone else to save them. And no one is coming. Let me be very specific about what I mean. When you say the economy is bad, that's why I can't get ahead, you're saying you have no control. You're saying your success depends on forces you can't influence. And maybe that's partially true, but it's also a cop-out, because there are people thriving in the exact same economy. There are people who started with less than you who are now far ahead of you. How? Because they didn't wait for the economy to get better. They found opportunities within the economy as it exists. They adapted, they pivoted, they learned new skills. They built new income streams. They didn't wait for permission or perfect conditions, they acted. When you say my boss won't give me a raise, that's why I'm stuck. And again, maybe your boss is unfair. Maybe they don't appreciate you. But that doesn't change the fact that you're the one choosing to stay in a situation where your value isn't. You could leave. You could negotiate. You could build skills that make you indispensable. You could start a side business. You have options. But exercising those options requires taking responsibility. It requires admitting that you're choosing your current situation by not choosing to change it. This is the armadillo, the trap that keeps most people poor forever. They outsource responsibility. They point to the government, the economy, the market, their parents, their circumstances, and by doing this, they surrender the one thing that could actually change their life. Agency. The moment you accept full responsibility for your results, something shifts. You stop waiting. You stop complaining. You stop hoping things will get better. You start asking different questions. What can I control? What can I learn? What can I build? What can I change? These are the questions of someone who's about to get rich. Not because the world will suddenly become fair, but because they've stopped waiting for fairness and started. There's a phrase that encapsulates this entire mindset. If it depends on me, I can change it. Read that again. If it depends on me, I can change it. This is not motivational, this is strategic. Because the moment something depends on you, you have leverage. You have control. You can experiment, iterate, improve, pivot. But if it depends on someone else, you're stuck, you're hoping, you're waiting, you're powerless. So the wealthiest people in the world have trained themselves to reframe every problem as something they can. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? What opportunity is hidden inside this obstacle? They take extreme ownership, not because they're arrogant, but because ownership gives them the ability to act. And action is the only thing that changes circumstances. Let me be very clear about something. This is not about toxic positivity. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is not about ignoring real systemic issues or structural inequalities. Those things exist. They matter, but they don't change the fact that you still have to act. You still have to decide, you still have to build. Complaining might feel good, but it builds nothing. Blaming might feel justified, but it creates no value. Taking responsibility might feel heavy, but it's the only path to power. And power is what you need if you want to build wealth in a world that doesn't hand it to you. Now I want you to do something. I want you to make a decision right now. This moment. Are you going to keep consuming this information passively? Or are you going to commit to the shift? Because everything I've shared so far is useless unless you internalize it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to the comments right now and type this exact phrase, I own my results. No excuses, no negotiations, that's it. 4 words. But those 4 words will do something powerful in your brain. They'll create a public commitment. They'll shift your identity. They'll force you to confront whether you actually believe what I'm teaching, or whether you're just. Public declarations change behavior. Studies show that when you commit to something publicly, you're exponentially more likely to follow through. So do it, type it, own it. And while you're there, hit the like button. Not because I need it, but because you do. Because liking this video is a signal to yourself that you're taking this seriously. And subscribe. Because what comes next is going to go even deeper. This is just the foundation. The real knowledge, the dangerous knowledge is coming. But I need to know you're ready for it. Let's pause for a second and recap what we've covered so far. Wealth is not an event, it's a system. Most people confuse earning money with building wealth, and they stay trapped in a cycle of working harder. The rich think in decades while the poor think in weeks. The ability to delay gratification is one of the strongest predictors of wealth, because every dollar spent. And finally, the most uncomfortable but most liberating truth is that you are completely responsible for your. These are the foundations. These are the mental models that separate those who build wealth from those who stay poor. But now we're going to go deeper. What comes next is more subtle, more strategic, and frankly, because here's what most people miss. Everything I've told you so far is just the baseline, the entry point, the cost of admission. If you want to actually get rich, if you want to create disproportionate value, and capture disproportionate. Value is not evenly distributed, it's not fair, it's not democratic, it's concentrated. And the people who understand where value concentrates, why it concentrates, everyone else is just trading time for money, hoping to get ahead. Let's talk about leverage, real leverage, not the motivational poster version. Leverage is what allows one person to create 10 times, 100 times. Without leverage, you're capped. You can only do so much, you can only work so many hours, you can only serve so many clients. You can only produce so much output. But with leverage, you break free of that cap. You multiply yourself, you create value in your sleep. There are 3 types of leverage that matter. Labor, capital, and code. Labor leverage is when other people work for you. You build a team, a company, a system where other people's time and skills create value that accrues to you. This is the oldest form of leverage, and it's still incredibly powerful. Every successful business owner understands this. They don't do everything themselves. They hire people who are better at specific tasks than they are. They build systems that allow their business to operate without them. They create organizations that generate value even when they're on vacation. This is how you escape the time for money trap. You stop being the bottleneck. You stop being the person who has to show up for the value to be created. You become the architect of a system that runs independently. Capital leverage is when you use other people's money to make investments, to scale, to build. This is how real estate investors operate. They put down 20% and the bank puts down 80%. They control a $500,000 asset with $100,000. That's 5-to-1 leverage. If the property appreciates by 10%, they didn't make $50,000. They made $50,000 on their $100,000, which is a 50% return. Same appreciation but leveraged returns. This is why the rich use debt strategically, not to buy things they can't afford but to multiply the impact of the capital they have. Poor people use debt to consume. Rich people use debt to invest. Completely different game. Code leverage, which is the newest and most powerful, is when you create software, content, media. A video you make once can be watched 1,000,000 times. A course you build once can be sold forever. A piece of software can serve billions of people without requiring more of your time. This is the most democratized form of leverage in human history. You don't need employees. You don't need investors. You just need skills, time, and the willingness to create something valuable. A teenager with a laptop can build leverage that would have required a factory, and 1,000 workers 50. This is the opportunity of the modern age, and most people are completely blind to it because they're still thinking in industrial age terms. They're still trading time for money when they could be building assets that multiply their time infinitely. The people who get rich understand this deeply. They don't just work hard, they build leverage. They create assets that multiply their effort. They position themselves so that every hour of input generates exponentially more output. A doctor trades time for money. A pharmaceutical entrepreneur builds a drug, patents it, same industry, completely different leverage. One is capped by the number of hours in a day. The other is capped only by the size of the market. This is why some people make millions while others make decent salaries doing the same type of work. It's not talent, it's structure, it's leverage. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The highest leverage comes from positioning yourself in markets where value is subjective, abundant. What does that mean? It means the more a market is driven by perception, taste, identity, and signaling. Art is subjective. Fashion is subjective. Content is subjective. Consulting is subjective. Branding is subjective. In these markets, there's no objective measure of quality. There's only what people believe is valuable. And that means you can create perception, shape narratives, build brands. A plain white t-shirt costs $5. The same t-shirt with a Supreme logo costs $200. Same fabric, same functionality, different value. Why? Because value in status-driven markets is entirely about perception, scarcity, and narrative. The person who understands this can create wealth out of thin air. Think about the consulting industry. Two consultants walk into a company with the exact same advice. One charges $5,000. The other charges $50,000. Is the $50,000 consultant 10 times better? Maybe. But more likely, they're just better at positioning themselves as high value. They have a polished website. They have case studies from recognizable companies. They dress impeccably. They speak with authority. They've been featured in publications. They have all the signals of credibility, expertise, status, and because of that, companies believe they're worth 10 times more. Same advice, different framing. Massively different compensation. This is not manipulation. This is understanding that in subjective markets, perception is reality. If people perceive you as valuable, you are valuable. If they perceive you as average, you're average. Your actual capabilities matter less than how those capabilities are presented, packaged, and positioned. This is why influencers, creators, and brand builders can become millionaires seemingly overnight. They're not producing objectively valuable things. They're producing perceived value. And in a world where attention is scarce and status is everything, perceived value is real value. People pay for it. They chase it. They build their identities around it. Look at the watch industry. A $20 Casio tells time perfectly. A $50,000 Rolex tells time no better. But people pay for the Rolex because it's not about telling time. It's about signaling status, taste, success. It's about what wearing that watch says about you. And the companies that understand this don't sell products. They sell identity. They sell the feeling of being part of an exclusive club. They sell the story you tell yourself and others when you own their product. So if you want to get rich in the modern world, you need to learn how to create perceived value. This is not lying. This is not pretending. This is understanding how human psychology works and aligning your offerings with what people actually value. Let's go even deeper. The people who capture the most value are not the people who create the most value. They're the people who control the distribution, the access points, the platforms. Apple doesn't make the best computers, they control the ecosystem. Amazon doesn't make the best products, they control the marketplace. Google doesn't create the best content, they control the search. The power is not in the thing, it's in the gateway. This is why platform businesses, marketplaces, and aggregators become worth billions, while the people doing, if you control the distribution, you control the value. If you control the access point, you capture the margin. Think about Spotify. Musicians create all the content, they write the songs, record the albums, build the fan bases. But Spotify controls the distribution. They own the platform where people listen to music. And because of that, they capture the majority of the economic value. The average musician on Spotify makes almost nothing. Meanwhile, Spotify as a company is worth billions. Same pattern with YouTube. Creators make the content. YouTube controls the platform. Same with Uber. Drivers provide the service. Uber controls the marketplace. Same with Airbnb. Hosts provide the properties. Airbnb controls the platform. Do you see the pattern? The value flows to whoever controls the bottleneck, the choke point, the distribution mechanism, not to whoever does the work. So the question becomes, how do you position yourself at a distribution choke point? How do you become the gateway that others have to go through? Maybe you build an audience. If you have 100,000 people who trust you and listen to you, you control access to those people. Brands will pay you to reach them. Products will pay you to promote them. You've become a distribution channel. Maybe you create a marketplace. If you can bring buyers and sellers together, you capture a percentage of every transaction. You're not creating the products or doing the work, but you're facilitating the exchange and taking a cut. Maybe you become the go-to person in your niche. If everyone in an industry knows that to succeed, they need to work with you, learn from you. You control access to credibility, to knowledge, to networks. And that control has enormous economic value. Maybe you build a brand that people trust. If consumers associate your brand with quality, with status, with reliability, the brand is the distribution advantage. It's what gets people to choose you over cheaper alternatives. Whatever the method, the principle is the same. Control distribution and you control value. Position yourself as the gateway, and the value has to flow through you. Now let's talk about something that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. Perception management. The wealthiest people in the world are obsessed with how they're perceived, not because they're insecure, but because they understand that perception drives opportunity. If people perceive you as successful, they give you access to success. If they perceive you as credible, they trust you with more responsibility. If they perceive you as high status, they want to be associated with you. Your reputation, your image, your personal brand is an asset that compounds over time. Every interaction is a deposit or a withdrawal. Every decision you make in public either builds credibility or destroys it. The person who manages this intentionally gets opportunities that others don't even know exist. They get invited to rooms they didn't apply to. They get offers they didn't ask for. They get access they didn't earn through traditional credentials. Why? Because people want to associate with winners. They want to work with people who have momentum. They want to invest in people who seem like a sure bet. Let me be very specific about what this means in practice. When you show up to a meeting, how you're dressed matters, not because clothing has inherent value, but because it signals how seriously you take yourself, and someone in a tailored suit is perceived differently than someone in wrinkled jeans. Same person, same ideas, different perception. When you speak, your confidence matters, not because confidence equals competence, but because people interpret confidence as a signal of competence. Someone who speaks with certainty and clarity is perceived as more knowledgeable than someone who hedges, and when you present your work, the packaging matters. A proposal in a professionally designed PDF with clear structure and visual hierarchy is perceived as more. This is why image matters. Not in a superficial way, but in a strategic way. How you dress, how you speak, how you present your work, how you position your story. Two people with the same skills can have completely different outcomes based on how they present themselves. One seems credible, polished, intentional. The other seems sloppy, unclear, forgettable. The market rewards the first and ignores the second, not because of the quality of the work, but because of the quality of the presentation. If you want to capture more value, you need to become obsessed with how your value is communicated, framed. This is not lying. This is not pretending to be something you're not. This is taking what you actually do and presenting it in a way that makes its value undeniable. Think about personal branding online. Two people with similar expertise. One posts sporadically, shares random thoughts, has an inconsistent presence. The other posts strategically, shares valuable insights in a specific niche. After a year, who do you think has more opportunities? Who gets the speaking invitations? Who gets approached by clients willing to pay premium rates? The second person every time. Not because they're smarter or more skilled, but because they've managed their perception intentionally. They've built a brand that signals expertise, reliability, value, and the market responds to those signals. Here's the final piece, and this is where most people completely miss the game. Value extraction is a negotiation, not an entitlement. Just because you create value doesn't mean you'll capture it. In fact, most people create enormous value and capture almost none of it. Why? Because they don't negotiate. They don't ask. They don't position themselves to extract what they've earned. They just hope someone will notice, appreciate, reward them. But the world doesn't work that way. The world rewards people who advocate for themselves, who know their worth, who demand fair compensation. If you don't negotiate, you lose. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you don't position yourself as someone whose value is non-negotiable. Let me give you a real example. Two software engineers with identical skills join the same company. Engineer A accepts the first salary offer without negotiation. Engineer B researches market rates, prepares evidence of their value, and negotiates for 15% more. Over a 10-year career, assuming the same raise percentages, same skills, same work, different outcome. Why? Because one person negotiated and the other didn't. That $300,000 didn't require working harder or being smarter. It required 15 minutes of uncomfortable conversation. But most people won't have that conversation. They're afraid of being perceived as greedy. They're afraid of losing the offer. They're afraid of conflict. So they accept less than their worth. And they do this over and over throughout their entire career. Every time they don't negotiate their salary. Every time they accept a project for less than it's worth. Every time they work for free hoping it will lead to something. They're training the market to undervalue them. This is why salary negotiation matters. Why pricing matters. Why contract terms matter. Why equity matters. Every single time you accept less than your worth, you're establishing a pattern. You're signaling to the market that your value is negotiable, flexible, dependent on someone else's assessment. The rich don't do this. They know their value. They've calculated it. They've researched it. They've proven it. And they communicate it with absolute certainty. They don't ask for what they're worth. They state it. They don't hope for fair compensation. They demand it. And if the other party won't meet their terms, they walk away. Because they understand that there's always another opportunity. But there's only one you. And undervaluing yourself once sets a precedent that's hard to break. Think about freelancers. Two graphic designers with similar portfolios. Designer A charges $50 an hour because they're worried no one will hire them at higher rates. Designer B charges $150 an hour because they've positioned themselves as premium. Designer A works 60 hours a week to make $75,000 a year. Designer B works 30 hours a week to make over $200,000. Same skills, different pricing strategy. Designer B isn't 3 times better. They just value themselves 3 times higher. And because they communicate that value confidently, clients pay it. They attract clients who appreciate quality and are willing to invest in it. Designer A attracts clients who are shopping on price, who don't value the work. Over time, these two paths diverge completely. Not because of talent, but because of how value is framed and negotiated from the beginning. Now let's talk about something that creates more wealth than almost anything else, but that most people, relationships. Strategic relationships. Your network is your net worth. This is not a cliche. This is literal truth. The opportunities that come through relationships dwarf the opportunities that come through your own efforts. Think about how the world actually works. The best jobs are never posted. They're filled through referrals. The best investment opportunities are never public. They're shared within trusted circles. The best partnerships, collaborations, deals, all of them happen through relationships that have been built. If you're not intentionally building high-quality relationships with high-value people, but here's what most people get wrong about networking. They treat it like collecting business cards. They go to events, shake hands, exchange contact information, and then never follow up. Or worse, they only reach out when they need something. This is extractive networking. It's transactional. It's obvious. And it doesn't work. Strategic networking is about giving value first. It's about building genuine relationships where you help people before you need anything from them. It's about becoming someone that others want to stay connected to. Because you're generous, you're valuable. When you operate this way, opportunities flow to you naturally. People think of you when something comes up. They introduce you to their network. They vouch for you. They invest in you. Not because you asked, but because you've built trust over time. Let me be very specific about how to do this. First, be strategic about who you invest time in. Not everyone deserves your time and attention. You want to build relationships with people who are ahead of where you want to be. People who are operating at a level you're trying to reach. People who have access, knowledge, resources, networks that you don't. This doesn't mean being a social climber or using people. It means being intentional about surrounding yourself with people who raise your standards. Second, provide value before you ask for anything. If you meet someone interesting, find ways to help them. Introduce them to someone they should know. Share an article relevant to their work. Offer your skills to solve a problem they have. Do this without expectation of immediate return. Most people won't do this. They'll wait. They'll keep score. They'll only give if they think they'll get back. But the people who give generously without tracking become magnets for opportunity. Because generosity is rare, and people remember those who helped them when they didn't have to. Third, stay in touch consistently. Relationships decay without maintenance. Most people make the mistake of only reaching out when they need something. Don't do this. Check in periodically. Share updates. Congratulate people on their wins. Offer help when you see opportunities. Make yourself a consistent, positive presence in their life. This way, when you do need something, the relationship has enough goodwill built up that asking feels natural. And finally, understand that network effects compound. The more high-quality relationships you build, the more valuable your network becomes. Because it's not just about your direct connections. It's about your connections. If you know 10 people who each know 10 people, you have access to 100 people. As your network grows, the number of potential opportunities grows exponentially. This is how people seem to get lucky. They're not lucky. They're just connected to enough people that opportunities constantly flow through their network. So here's the framework. Create value where the market is willing to pay. Build leverage so your value multiplies. Position yourself at distribution choke points. Manage perception so opportunities flow to you. Negotiate ruthlessly so you capture the value you create. Stack complementary skills to make yourself irreplaceable. Build strategic relationships that open doors you can't open alone. These 7 principles, applied consistently over time, are the difference between working hard your whole. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about seeing the game clearly and playing it at a level most people don't even know exists. Now that you understand the architecture of value creation, the question is, because knowledge without action is just entertainment. You've spent the last however many minutes absorbing ideas that most people will never hear, never understand. You now see the world differently. You see why most people stay poor. You see why a small percentage gets rich. You see the patterns, the principles, the systems. But seeing is not enough. You have to move. You have to decide. You have to commit. Starting today, you need to audit every decision through the lens of value creation. Is this building wealth or draining it? Is this long-term or short-term? Is this positioning me to capture value or giving it away? You need to become ruthless about where your time goes, where your money goes, where your attention goes. Because every single day you're either compounding in the right direction or the wrong direction. There is no neutral. Every hour spent learning a valuable skill is an investment. Every hour spent scrolling is a withdrawal. Every dollar saved and invested is working for you. Every dollar spent on depreciating items is working against you. Every relationship built with intention is a potential future opportunity. Every relationship neglected is a door closing. You're either building the life you want, or you're building the life that happens to you by default. And the difference between those two paths comes down to awareness and action. The uncomfortable truth is that most people who watch this video will do nothing. They'll nod along. They'll feel motivated for an hour. They'll tell themselves they'll start tomorrow. And then they'll go back to the exact same patterns that have kept them stuck. They'll keep spending emotionally. They'll keep thinking short-term. They'll keep blaming external factors. They'll keep undervaluing themselves. They'll keep networking transactionally. They'll keep accepting the first offer. They'll keep hoping instead of building. And 5 years from now, they'll be in the exact same place wondering why nothing changed, watching another video, hoping this one will be different. But it won't be. Because the problem was never the information. The problem was the execution. The problem was the gap between knowing and doing. And that gap is where most people's potential goes to die. But not you. You're different. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't. You're the type of person who sees the truth and acts on it, who understands that transformation is possible, but only through relentless commitment to doing things. So decide right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, decide that you're done being average. Decide that you're going to build systems, not wait for events. Decide that you're going to think in decades, not days. Decide that you're going to delay gratification, take responsibility, build leverage, control perception. Decide that you're going to win. Not because the world handed you an advantage, but because you learned the rules and played the game better. Because you understood that wealth isn't luck. It's not random, it's not for other people. It's a set of principles applied consistently over time. And you just learned those principles. The only question left is whether you're going to apply them. Whether you're going to wake up tomorrow and start making different choices. Whether you're going to start treating your time like the finite, non-renewable resource it is. Whether you're going to start treating your money like seeds that should be planted, not like fuel to burn. Whether you're going to start treating your relationships like assets that need cultivation. Whether you're going to start treating your perception like a brand that needs management. Whether you're going to start treating negotiation like a skill that needs practice. Whether you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledge that you and you alone are responsible. Because if you can do that, if you can make that shift, everything changes. Not overnight, not magically, but inevitably. Because you'll be operating by a different set of rules, you'll be playing a different game. And in that game, winning is not only possible, it's probable. Now that you understand the base mental frameworks, the next step is to dominate money itself before it. Because understanding value is one thing, managing money is another. And in the next video, we're going to dismantle every lie you've been told about saving, investing, debt. We're going to show you exactly how to structure your finances so that money works for you instead of you. This is where theory becomes practice. This is where knowledge becomes wealth. So if you're serious about this, if you're committed to the transformation, the philosophy is done. Now we build the machine,